will be able to bless you. But your support is needed. You see, your financial donations do go a long way to ensure we are able to provide you the programs that will truly bless your heart. We can each be a part of ATN in one way or another. So consider donating or becoming one of our monthly sponsors. You may donate through the following platforms. Thank you, and may God's grace be with you.
Have you ever been unable to attend a regular worship service on a Sabbath morning and had to remain at home? How you wish to fellowship with your church family and to receive God's blessings? At ATN and CBM, we understand how you feel and therefore invite you to be blessed by our virtual worship service program. Shown on Sabbath mornings at 9:15 a.m., ATN's virtual worship service is a place of melodious singing, interactive Sabbath school programs and lesson reviews, heartwarming children's stories, and spiritually uplifting sermons. So tune in via our Facebook page, YouTube channel, and Channel 98 and receive God's Sabbath blessings for you. ATN Virtual Worship Service, sharing God's love, spreading His word.
Today, we're going to be looking at one of the most startling and thunderous teachings of Jesus found in the entire Bible. One that for more than 310 million people will hit very close to home. Stay with us as we consider the prophecies of Jesus regarding the United States of America. Red at night, sailors delight. Red in the morning, sailors take warning. Science has discovered that there may just be something to this old English sailing proverb. You see, when there's a red sky at night, it tells us that the setting sun is sending its light through an atmosphere with a high concentration of dust particles. This usually indicates high pressure and stable air coming in from the west. Simply said, good weather is on its way. On the other hand, if the morning sky is a deep fiery red, it may indicate a high water content in the atmosphere, so rain is on its way. That's the modern scientific explanation, but did you know the premise of this old sailing proverb can actually be traced all the way back to the teachings of Jesus himself? It's true. In Matthew 16, verses 2 and 3, Jesus said, "When it is evening, ye say, it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. O ye hypocrites, ye can discern the face of the sky, but can ye not discern the signs of the times?" Jesus was using this same illustration to point out that certain signs will definitively announce that we are nearing the end of time. In fact, Jesus said we can know when his coming is near. How? By the signs.
That's right. So let's go ahead and read what some of those signs are that Jesus talks about. Matthew 24, 4 through 8 says, "And Jesus answered and said to them, Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. So, are we seeing the fulfillment of these signs today? The answer is absolutely and indisputably yes. We don't have time today to go over all the different signs Jesus spoke about, but I at least want to take a look at a couple of them, just so you can get an idea of how clearly these things are being fulfilled in our time. On the official United States Geological Survey's website, you can find a list of the earthquakes which the USGS has selected as being of general historical interest, dating back to the 9th century AD. If you take the time to go through and count all of the earthquakes listed under each century, you'll be amazed at what you find. Listen to this. In the 800s, there are 2 earthquakes listed for the whole century. In the 1100s, there is only 1 earthquake listed for the whole century. In the 1200s, there are 2, and then also 2 in the 1500s. But notice what happens when we get to the 1600s. Instead of being 1 or 2 like the centuries previous, the number of earthquakes noted in the 1600s skyrockets to 10. That's a 500% jump in just 1 century. Then the 1700s get even worse with 14 notable earthquakes taking place. But my friends, you haven't seen anything yet. In the 1800s, there's a mega leap to 61. That's a nearly 3,000% jump from the 800s. And if you are still not convinced that the signs Jesus foretold are coming to pass, well, how about the 1900s? Amazingly, in the 1900s, the number of notable earthquakes jumps to 427. That's more than a 21,000% increase. I mean, what more do you need in order to see that the signs Jesus foretold are here? And listen, if that wasn't enough, between the years 2000 and 2011, there have already been 441 earthquakes listed. That's more notable earthquakes in the first 11 years of this century than there were in the entire 20th century. And since we're on the topic of natural disasters, let's look at how the number of tornadoes has increased in recent years. In the early 1950s, there were somewhere between 200 and 300 tornadoes reported each year. But by the time we come into the early 21st century, that number is up to between 16 and 1,800 per year. Clearly, something is going on.
You better believe it, Andrea. And we haven't even talked about the wars, rumors of wars, famine, pestilence, and false Christ. I mean, we could literally spend a whole study just talking about how the signs are being fulfilled. Take wars, for example. We've all heard that the 20th century was one of the bloodiest centuries of all time. But some people say, of course, there were more conflict-related deaths because the world population was more than double from the century before. More people equals more deaths. But is that really the only reason it was the bloodiest century? Well, let's take a look at it based not on the numbers, but based on the percentages. Here are the percentages of the past 5 centuries of conflict-related deaths as compared to the world population of the time. In the 1500s, the percentage was 0.32. In the 1600s, it was 1.05. The 1700s were at 0.92. The 1800s jumped up to 1.65. In the 1900s, were at, you ready? 4.35%. That's well over 2.5 times the bloodiest century prior to it. Now, we don't have time to cover all of the signs that Jesus talked about here, but I assure you, if we did, we'd find the same upward trend in every one of them as we have in the few that we've already looked at. So the question, are we at the end of the world? Well, obviously yes. But Jesus said it would get even worse than all these things. All these are the beginning of sorrows, he said in Matthew 24:8. But look at what he said would happen next. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. Really? Hated by all nations? A worldwide death decree for God's end time people? That's what Jesus prophesied. In fact, Jesus actually tells us where this persecution, this worldwide death decree is going to originate. Levi?
That's right, Carl. And I know right now we all want to know where Jesus said this persecution will originate. Of course, he never mentions the actual name of this place or nation, but he does give us a list of identifying features that will allow us to recognize this persecuting power. Now, stay with me here, because in my own study I discovered that what Jesus taught in Matthew 24 about the signs of his return parallels what he revealed to John in Revelation 13 and 14 with remarkable clarity. First of all, both Matthew 24 and Revelation 13 speak of a worldwide death decree for God's faithful end-time people. Then, in Matthew 24:11, we're told that many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. Revelation 13:14 tells us that this lamb-like beast, also described as the false prophet in Revelation 16, deceived all the people living on the earth by means of the miracles which it was allowed to perform. The next verse in Matthew, verse 12, says that lawlessness will abound. Following the same order, the next thing we come to in Revelation is this beast saying to all them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which is very much a parallel to the lawlessness in Matthew. This image to the beast is set up when laws are enforced that will seek to compel people to worship contrary to the 10 Commandment law of God, and especially the 4th commandment, the Sabbath. For more information on this point, see Lesson 13 entitled, Who Moved the Mark? Next, we read in Matthew 24:13 that he who endures to the end shall be saved. Revelation 13:10 speaks of the persecuted saints as having patience because of what they need to endure. Our final parallel is found in Matthew 24:14. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end will come. Did you get that? After Jesus describes the persecution, the deception, the lawlessness, he says that, notice, the gospel will be preached to all nations, and then the end will come. That is to say, Jesus will return. And once again, Revelation follows a perfect parallel. Just 6 verses into the very next chapter in Revelation, we read this. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting, what? The everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth. And just like Matthew 24, to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. My friends, this is the gospel that Jesus said will go out to the whole world just before his return. If you want to know what he expects his faithful last day church to be preaching, then read this whole message found in Revelation 14, 6 through 12. It's known as the 3 angels message. And by the way, just as in Matthew 24, immediately after the preaching of this 3 angels message, Jesus is seen coming back to harvest the earth. So, are the things that Jesus taught in Matthew 24 and what we read in Revelation 13 and 14 descriptions of the same events? Well, I would have to give a resounding yes.
Wow, Levi, those are some insightful discoveries. And with that context, we can now begin to unpack the beast powers of Revelation 13. The first beast is found in Revelation 13, 1 to 10, and the second in Revelation 13:11 to 18. Let's begin with the first one. In Revelation 13:1 and 2, John writes, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and great authority." This is a representation of the same persecuting power described in the book of Daniel as the little horn, which in 2 previous lessons we identified as the Roman Catholic Church. Now, we don't have enough time to fully cover this point today, but let's just make a few comparisons between the little horn power of Daniel 7 and 8 and the first beast here in Revelation 13. Daniel 7 verse 25 says, "He shall speak great words against the Most High." In Revelation 13 verse 6, "He opened his mouth in blasphemy against God." Daniel 7 verse 21 says, "He made war with the saints and prevailed against them." In Revelation 13 verse 7, "It was given unto him to make war with the saints." Daniel 8 verse 24 says, "And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power." In Revelation 13 verse 2, "The dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority." Daniel 7 verse 25 says, "The saints shall be given into his hand for a time and times and half a time." This is the 1260-year period that lasted from 538 to 1798. And in Revelation 13 verse 5, this same time period is described as 40 and 2 months, that the beast was given power to continue. In Daniel 7 verses 1 to 8, this Roman power is preceded by Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece, symbolized by a lion, a bear, and a leopard. In Revelation 13 verse 2, the same kingdoms are mentioned only in the reverse order: a leopard, a bear, and a lion. Because unlike Daniel, who was writing from the time of Babylon going forward to the time of Rome, John was writing from the time of Rome looking backward in history to the time of Babylon. So the first beast of Revelation 13 must be the Roman Catholic Church, the same power as the little horn of Daniel 7 and 8. But what about that second beast?
Well, now that we know who the first beast of Revelation 13 is, it really shouldn't be all that difficult to identify the second. So let's go about this task kind of like a news reporter, asking the questions who, what, where, when, and how. Let's begin with the what. What is this beast? Daniel 7:17 says, "These great beasts, which are four kings." Verse 23 says, "The fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth." So what does a beast represent in Bible prophecy? A kingdom or a nation. And among other things, we're also told in Revelation 13:11 that this beast or nation has 2 horns like a lamb. What does this represent? Well, the other 28 times the word lamb is used in the book of Revelation, it refers to Christ. So we would be safe to say that at the very least, this nation is represented as having some Christ-like characteristics. Thus, point number 1 is that this beast represents a kingdom or nation that possesses Christian characteristics or principles. Pretty simple so far. And now for the when. When does this nation arise? According to Revelation 13:10 through 11, this beast arises right around the time the first beast receives its deadly wound. When was the deadly wound inflicted upon the papacy? In 1798, when Pope Pius VI was taken captive by the French general Alexander Berthier, causing the Roman Catholic Church to lose her authority. So point number 2 is that it would arise sometime around the year 1798. How about the where? Well, unlike the other beasts in Daniel and Revelation, which arise from the sea, verse 11 tells us that this beast rises out of the earth. According to Revelation 17:15, the sea represents peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, or a populated area. Thus, the earth would represent the opposite, a sparsely populated area. So our third point is that this beast or nation rises in a sparsely populated area of Earth. And now for our last question. How does this beast come to power? Unlike other beasts mentioned, it's not seen conquering another nation in order to gain its territory or supremacy, but rather it simply comes up out of the earth. Thus, our fourth and final point is that this nation does not conquer another world kingdom in order to gain its position and power. So my friends, which nation does this beast represent? There can be no question that this beast represents the United States of America. No other nation fits, as Carl will explain.
Well, Andrea, let's go through and look at each of the points that you mentioned. First of all, is America a nation that was founded upon Christian principles? Well, what did its founders have to say? In a letter to Thomas Jefferson, yes, the same Thomas Jefferson who wrote the Declaration of Independence, John Adams, our second president, said, "The general principles upon which the fathers achieved independence were the general principles of Christianity." In 1775, John Hancock wrote, "We recognize no sovereign but God, and no king but Jesus." Both these men were actual signers of the Declaration of Independence, and they believed that America was indeed founded upon Christian principles. How about point number 2? Did America rise as a nation around the year 1798? Absolutely. The Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4, 1776. The Constitution was voted in 1787. In 1791, they adopted the Bill of Rights, and by 1798, the United States of America was clearly recognized as a sovereign nation. And point number 3, did America arise from a sparsely populated area of the earth? Yes. Unlike the other kingdoms of Daniel and Revelation, which all arose from the populated continent of Europe, America arose from a sparsely populated and little-known area of Earth. It clearly fits the description. Finally, did America have to conquer another world kingdom in order to gain its supremacy? The answer is no. Although the continent had native tribes, it did not have an established world kingdom which would need to be taken out of the way in order for the new nation to grow. So, who's this second beast? My friends, clearly the second beast of Revelation 13 can be none other than the United States of America.
That's right, Carl. And now that we understand who the two beasts of Revelation 13 are, the Roman Catholic Church and the United States of America, I want to take this study a step further. Revelation 13 says that he, that is the United States, exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. But exactly who's involved in persecuting God's people here, and what's the reason for the persecution? The shocking answer is found in Revelation 17. Here, these same two persecuting powers are represented not as beasts, but as a harlot woman and her daughters. Revelation 17, 3-6 says, "So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus." Now, a woman in prophecy is a symbol of a church, so it makes sense that the papacy, or Roman Catholic Church, would be symbolized this way. She's called the Great Harlot in verse 1, and she has the name Babylon the Great written on her forehead here in verse 5. But she also has daughters or other churches that follow in her example of harlotry. What is this harlotry? And how is it that other churches are following her in it and becoming a part of spiritual Babylon? The answer, believe it or not, is clearly seen in the colors she's wearing.
Sounds strange, but Levi is actually right about this. Let's take a look at it. Revelation 17 verse 4 says, "She was arrayed in purple and scarlet and decked with gold." Now, compare the colors of this false priestess with the colors God's true priests were to wear. "And they shall make the ephod of gold, of blue, of purple, and of scarlet." So what was this harlot missing? The blue. And this missing blue color is critical when you understand what it means. Numbers 15 verse 38 and 39 says, "Put a blue thread in the tassels, that you may look upon it and remember all the commandments of the Lord and do them." The blue was there to remind them of God's commandments, to keep them and do them. Disobedience to God's law constitutes spiritual adultery. Just listen to how verse 39 continues, "That you may not follow the harlotry to which your own heart and your own eyes are inclined." It's clear. This woman of Revelation 17 is missing the blue. And what is she called? She's called a harlot. Why? Because she's not keeping God's commandments. And that is the issue upon which she becomes spiritual Babylon, and upon which her daughters become a part of spiritual Babylon and follow in her example of harlotry. Red in the morning, sailors take warning. You know, Jesus taught that we are fools when we are slow to believe what the prophets have told us. Jesus said we are hypocrites when we claim to be Christians and yet fail to discern the fulfilled signs of prophecy. So, pay attention to what we've learned today. We've learned of a lamb-like beast that would begin in a Christ-like manner. We learned that this nation would eventually speak like a dragon or Satan, trying to force everyone to worship at the seat of the papacy. And we learned that this beast's power, the United States, will issue a worldwide death decree for those who refuse to worship in the Catholic manner, in particular on Sunday. Right now, it may seem improbable for these predictions to come true, but considering that Daniel and Revelation have perfect track records, I am compelled to believe. So today we learned that God predicted that a lamb-like nation would come to power. That was fulfilled in the United States of America. We also learned that God foretold this nation, encouraged by the harlot daughters of the papacy or apostate Protestantism, would abandon the law of God. That prophecy has certainly been fulfilled, especially in regard to the fourth commandment, the seventh-day Sabbath. Almost all Protestant churches today are following the Roman Church in breaking the fourth of the 10 commandments. Apostate Protestantism is keeping the first day of the week, which the Catholic Church claimed to solemnify, in place of the true seventh-day Sabbath of the 10 commandments. So, my friend, is the sky red today? We've already seen that the signs Jesus talked about are all around, so we can be certain that everything he spoke of as taking place just before his return will indeed come to pass, and in fact is coming to pass. So, the question we must now ask ourselves is, will we be faithful to God? Will we answer the call of Jesus to come out of this false system of worship? Will we choose to love and obey Jesus?
Today, more than ever before, media has become an important element in our daily lives as our society is media-centric. At ATN, we recognize this, and therefore, with God's help, we strive to provide you, our viewers, with not just spiritual, but also enriching programs that will be able to bless you. But your support is needed. You see, your financial donations do go a long way to ensure we are able to provide you the programs that will truly bless your heart. We can each be a part of ATN in one way or another. So consider donating or becoming one of our monthly sponsors. You may donate through the following platforms. Thank you, and may God's grace be with you.
Have you ever been unable to attend a regular worship service on a Sabbath morning and had to remain at home? How you wish to fellowship with your church family and to receive God's blessings? At ATN and CBM, we understand how you feel and therefore invite you to be blessed by our virtual worship service program. Shown on Sabbath mornings at 9:15 a.m., ATN's virtual worship service is a place of melodious singing, interactive Sabbath school programs and lesson reviews, heartwarming children's stories, and spiritually uplifting sermons. So tune in via our Facebook page, YouTube channel, and Channel 98 and receive God's Sabbath blessings for you. ATN Virtual Worship Service, sharing God's love, spreading His word.